Okay, so I'm back now pulling off the main cap off this Honda engine. I'm going to do my best to hold my phone still here. So something to keep in mind with this one is there's 10 bolts across the top here. There's 2 here. There's 4 across here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in the front. And then there's 4 more on the main caps. And when you pull it off, something to keep in mind is that the balancer chain, which I've already removed, runs right underneath the main cap to this rear balancer, which is held into the cap by this balancer shaft right here. So it's under tension when this is torqued down from the balancer chain tensioner shaft. And when you pull this out, this tensioner runner sits right underneath here, underneath the cap, and it's going to fall out of there. So just kind of anticipate that that's going to happen when you pull this. So as you pull it up and look underneath, that balancer there is held in by that balancer pin. And when the chain is connected from the main cap to that front balancer weight, you're not going to be able to move this very much. It just is going to kind of be stuck there. So you have to remove this pin, which is sitting like that, from the balancer shaft. And you can do that before you take the main cap off if you pull this bolt out, because it holds this shaft in place. So if you pull it out a little bit, you can see there's a detent in the positioning shaft that's held in place by this bolt. So once this is out, you can remove this and have this balancer weight drop for when you pull the cap off. So then once it's off, you can inspect the bearings. So for this bike, I've cleaned up these bearings a little bit. They've got some dark spots. It's not super even wear. From side to side, the oil pump side seems to have a little bit more comprehensive wear, but it doesn't look to be excessive. Center bearing doesn't look too bad. There's definitely no like copper showing through. They're a little bit dark, but I don't think they're like overworn. There seems to be a little. So anyways, that's kind of with pulling the caps. Something to keep in mind. Now on this bike, these journals look pretty good. Most of them. There aren't really any major things here that I'm concerned about. There's no steep scoring or even scratching on the main journals. I would turn it for you guys to see the whole journal, but honestly that right there is pretty indicative of how the whole journal looks. Not too worn, just a little bit of it, just light wear. At least that's what it seems like to me. I inspected this balancer chain. There's really no damage on the chain itself. This is the little oil orifice for the main cap that has to come out, but I haven't pulled out the transmission gears. They're still in there. But overall, that's an overview of pulling the caps off. And I guess for the guys that are kind of helping me with this project, that's a little view of what we're working with in terms of the journals on the main journals on the crankshaft look like. I'll pull these piston caps off and check those, or the rod bearings on these connecting rods, and I'll check those. But overall, I don't see any defects like in the chains. I have no way to measure the length. I guess I could. That might be a good idea. But the other thing I was wondering about here is that this tensioner runner for the balancer chain has some scoring in it. Like, I don't know if it comes like that with these grooves in it, but it's top and bottom, it's got the scoring, and I think it sits like this. It's my son's hand. As this balancer chain runs up, I think it just sits between the two surfaces like this, tensioned up against the main cap, and the chain just runs along both surfaces as it connects to the crank and the balancers. So I assume it's made to wear, but I don't know what excessive looks like for this. It's a little deeper than a fingernail's width, at least on top. It's a little deeper on the top than it is on the underside. But that's kind of where we're at here. I'm happy that the crankshaft isn't messed up, because at least on the main journals, that's a good sign that I won't have to like buy a new engine. I assume I'll need to buy new bearings. I'm not really sure exactly what worn bearings on a crankshaft or motorcycle look like. I know on a car that they should show some copper. Those bearings don't look too bad. While I'm in here, I should probably just replace them, but anyways, that's something to think about when you're pulling the main caps off of this bike.